Most people believe powerful connections are built through luck, being in the right room, knowing the right people, having status, money, influence. But that's only the surface. Real social power operates underneath appearances, quietly, psychologically, because powerful people are not evaluating you the way average people do. They are not impressed by noise, not impressed by desperation, not impressed by attention-seeking behavior. In fact, the harder someone tries to appear important, the less valuable they usually seem. That is the first illusion you must destroy. Powerful people are surrounded by performance constantly. Fake confidence, forced charisma, strategic compliments, people trying to gain access, which means the average person enters powerful spaces already disadvantaged. Not because they lack intelligence, but because their behavior exposes neediness immediately. And neediness is social weakness. That is why social climbing is misunderstood. It is not about manipulation. It is about positioning. Understanding human nature deeply enough to become valuable without appearing desperate for approval. That is where influence begins. Because the individuals who build strong connections with powerful people rarely chase power directly. They attract respect indirectly, through composure, competence, scarcity, emotional control. And today, you're going to understand the 7 laws behind that process. Not surface-level networking advice, not fake confidence tactics, but the deeper psychological principles that determine who gets remembered and who gets ignored. #Red Triangle pointed down Law 1. Never enter a room seeking approval. This is where most people fail instantly. They enter powerful environments emotionally hungry for validation, recognition, attention, acceptance. And powerful people detect that immediately, because insecurity has patterns. Over-talking, over-smiling, over-explaining, trying too hard to impress. These behaviors feel small in the moment, but psychologically, they communicate lower positioning. Now understand this carefully. People with influence spend their lives observing social behavior. They notice emotional dependence quickly. And once someone appears dependent on approval, their perceived value drops. Because value and desperation cannot coexist. That's why emotionally disciplined individuals behave differently. They do not force presence. They do not dominate conversations unnecessarily. They enter calmly, observe first, speak deliberately. Because restraint creates intrigue. And intrigue creates psychological gravity. The most respected people in any room are rarely the loudest. They are usually the most grounded, the least emotionally reactive, the least desperate to prove themselves. That calmness changes perception immediately, because people trust stability. And powerful people especially value emotional control, not performance, control. Law 2. Understand that powerful people value energy more than words. Most people focus entirely on what to say. Wrong focus. Human beings respond to emotional atmosphere before logic, especially powerful individuals, because they are constantly evaluating risk, stress, drama, instability, neediness. That means your emotional energy matters more than your conversation skills. A calm individual creates psychological comfort. An emotionally chaotic individual creates subconscious exhaustion. This is why some people walk into rooms and immediately gain respect without speaking much. Their energy feels controlled, measured, predictable in the best way, not emotionally unstable. And this becomes critical in high-level relationships, because powerful people protect their peace aggressively. They avoid emotionally expensive individuals, the complainers, the attention seekers, the endlessly reactive, not because they lack empathy, but because emotional instability becomes liability. That's why emotional discipline is social currency. The ability to remain composed under pressure creates trust faster than charisma ever will. Red Triangle pointed down Law 3. Never try to look important. This is one of the oldest mistakes in social climbing. People attempt to manufacture status externally. Designer clothes, forced confidence, name-dropping, exaggerated success stories. But true influence recognizes performance instantly, because powerful individuals have spent years around people pretending to matter. And pretending always leaks eventually. Real status behaves differently. It does not announce itself constantly. It moves quietly, The truly powerful person rarely needs everyone to know they are powerful. That need itself reveals insecurity. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Power is strongest when it appears effortless, not forced. The individual constantly trying to prove intelligence usually doubts their intelligence internally. The individual constantly trying to prove status usually fears being insignificant. And psychologically, people feel that tension, even unconsciously. That's why quiet competence creates stronger influence than loud ambition, because people trust what appears natural, not performed. Red triangle pointed down. Law 4. Learn the observer advantage. Most people enter conversations focused on themselves, how they appear, what they should say, how others perceive them. This creates anxiety, and anxiety destroys awareness. The socially intelligent individual shifts focus outward. They study people, patterns, behavior, tone, timing. They notice who dominates conversations emotionally, who seeks validation constantly, who interrupts, who listens, who performs confidence versus who naturally carries it. Observation creates leverage, because human beings reveal themselves continuously, especially around power. Some become submissive, some become aggressive, some become performative, and those patterns reveal deeper insecurities. Now here's the advantage. The observer is harder to manipulate, because awareness interrupts emotional impulsiveness. You stop reacting automatically. You start seeing dynamics beneath conversations. And once you see dynamics, you move strategically instead of emotionally. That changes everything. Red triangle pointed down. Law 5. Become useful without appearing transactional. This law separates respected individuals from opportunists. Most people approach powerful individuals wanting something immediately. Access, money, opportunities, attention, which creates imbalance instantly. Because relationships built entirely on extraction feel manipulative. The intelligent individual approaches differently. They create value first, quietly, without immediate expectation, maybe through insight, reliability, connections, competence, emotional steadiness. Because usefulness builds trust faster than admiration, and trust creates long-term access. Now this does not mean becoming submissive. Important distinction. There's a difference between service and desperation. Desperate people overgive hoping for approval. Strategic individuals contribute selectively because they understand reciprocity. Powerful people respect individuals who add value naturally without appearing emotionally dependent on reward. That balance matters. Because once you appear overly eager, your leverage weakens. Red triangle pointed down. Law 6. Master emotional detachment. This is one of the most misunderstood forms of social power. People think emotional detachment means coldness. Wrong. It means stability. The ability to remain centered regardless of external validation. Most people become emotionally overwhelmed around influential individuals. They seek approval subconsciously, which changes behavior instantly. Voice tone shifts, confidence weakens, authenticity disappears. And powerful people notice this immediately. Because emotional dependence creates predictable behavior. The emotionally detached person behaves differently. They remain respectful, but grounded. They do not emotionally collapse in the presence of status. This creates psychological equality, and equality creates respect. Now understand something important. Powerful individuals rarely respect worship. They may tolerate it, use it, benefit from it. But deep respect usually comes from individuals who remain internally stable around influence. Because emotional stability signals self-worth. And self-worth changes social dynamics dramatically. Law 7. Create mystery through limitation. Most people reveal too much too quickly. Too many opinions. Too many emotions. Too much personal information. And overexposure weakens intrigue. Mystery creates psychological depth. Not artificial mystery. Not pretending to be unreadable. But discipline limitation. The ability to leave space between yourself and others. This creates curiosity naturally. Because human beings value what feels difficult to fully access. Now this does not mean becoming emotionally unavailable. It means becoming intentional, strategic, selective. The most intriguing people are rarely the ones demanding attention. They are the ones people continue thinking about after the interaction ends. because their presence feels controlled, measured, unpredictable in subtle ways. And unpredictability creates fascination, especially in social hierarchies. Red triangle pointed down the dark reality of social climbing. Now understand this carefully. Most people never rise socially because they misunderstand human nature completely. They believe success comes from impressing everyone. Wrong. Trying to impress everyone destroys authenticity. And authenticity creates stronger long-term influence than performance ever will. The socially intelligent person understands something deeper. People are emotionally driven first, logically driven second, which means influence operates psychologically before intellectually. How people feel around you determines more than what you say. That's why emotional control matters. Why composure matters. Why restraint matters. Because social dynamics are not random. They are behavioral systems. And once you understand those systems, rooms begin to feel different. You notice who truly holds influence, who performs influence, who seeks validation, who controls emotional atmosphere. And eventually, you stop chasing status entirely. Because the moment you stop emotionally chasing power, your positioning changes automatically. You appear calmer, more grounded, more valuable, not because you forced it, but because emotional independence creates psychological weight. And that is what powerful people recognize instantly. Red triangle pointed down final understanding. The truth is, powerful connections are not built through manipulation. They are built through emotional intelligence, awareness, positioning, the ability to remain composed in environments where most people become emotionally reactive. Because influence is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself first. That is the foundation. And once you master that, everything changes. Conversations change. Presence changes. Perception changes. You stop entering rooms hoping to be accepted, and start entering rooms already internally grounded. That subtle shift changes the entire social dynamic. Because people sense certainty. They sense emotional stability. And in a world addicted to performance, authentic composure becomes rare. And rare things always carry value. But understand this, social climbing is only one layer. Because even after you gain access to powerful people, another problem appears. Trust. Who can actually be trusted once power enters the equation? Who is loyal? And who is simply positioning themselves around opportunity? That is the next level most people fail to understand. And the moment you believe influence alone protects you, is usually the moment betrayal becomes possible. The invisible social hierarchy. Most people walk into powerful rooms completely blind. They think status is created through money, titles, clothes, confidence. But real influence operates beneath visibility. Quietly, psychologically, because every social environment has an invisible hierarchy, a structure that determines who gets attention, who gets remembered, who gets invited, who gets ignored. And the dangerous part is this. Most people unknowingly position themselves at the bottom before they even speak, not because they lack intelligence, but because their behavior communicates low value, too eager, too available, too desperate to impress. Powerful people notice this instantly, not consciously, behaviorally, because individuals who operate around influence every day become experts at reading energy. They notice who is trying too hard, who wants validation, who seeks approval, who enters conversations already psychologically beneath them. And once that dynamic is established, everything changes. The conversation becomes unequal. One person seeks opportunity, the other controls access. That is why social climbing is not about chasing powerful people. It is about positioning yourself so your presence carries psychological weight. Because influence is attracted to value, not desperation. And the moment someone senses neediness, respect begins to decrease. This is where most people fail. They think networking is about being liked. It's not. It's about becoming strategically memorable. Red triangle pointed down law 1. Never arrive empty. When most people meet someone powerful, they arrive wanting something. Advice, connections, attention, opportunity. And immediately, the interaction becomes transactional, predictable, forgettable. But strategically intelligent people understand something different. The fastest way to gain access is to become useful, not artificially, not manipulatively, but intentionally. Powerful individuals are surrounded by people asking for favors. Very few offer value. That alone separates you instantly. Maybe you bring insight. Maybe you solve a problem. Maybe you connect them with someone valuable. Maybe you simply understand timing. Because timing itself is social intelligence. The person who appears only when they need something becomes mentally categorized as a burden. But the person who consistently contributes value without desperation becomes difficult to ignore. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this deeply. Power is rarely given freely. It is exchanged, quietly, strategically. And the individuals who rise socially are usually not the loudest people in the room. They are the most useful. Red triangle pointed down. Law 2. Control your emotional presence. Most people think powerful communication comes from words. It doesn't. It comes from emotional regulation. Because emotionally reactive people create instability. And instability weakens trust. Imagine two individuals entering a high-level conversation. One speaks constantly, laughs too hard, interrupts frequently, over-explains every thought. The other speaks carefully, listens deeply, responds slowly, maintains composure. Who appears more powerful? Usually the quieter one. Not because silence itself creates authority, but because emotional discipline creates psychological gravity. Powerful people trust individuals who remain composed under pressure, because composure signals control, and control creates safety. That's why emotional discipline is social currency. The person who can remain calm while others become emotional immediately changes the dynamic, because while everyone else is reacting, they are observing, and observation creates advantage. Red triangle pointed down. Law 3. Understand status signals. Every environment has status signals. Most people miss them completely. They only notice obvious power, money, titles, followers. But real status is often communicated subtly, through certainty, through restraint, through how others respond when someone speaks. Watch carefully in any room. Who interrupts people? Who gets interrupted? Who speaks briefly yet holds attention? Who over-explains because they fear being misunderstood? These patterns reveal hierarchy instantly. The socially intelligent individual studies these details quietly, because if you cannot read social dynamics, you cannot navigate them. And here's something dangerous. Many powerful people test others indirectly, not through confrontation, but through discomfort, a delayed response, a cold interaction, a moment of silence, a small dismissal. And most people fail the test immediately. They overcompensate, seek validation, talk too much, try harder. But emotionally disciplined individuals do something different. They remain centered, unaffected, measured, and that calmness communicates hidden confidence. Red triangle pointed down. The dangerous need to be liked. One of the biggest weaknesses in social climbing is the need for approval, because the moment your behavior becomes controlled by wanting to be liked, you lose strategic clarity. You begin adjusting yourself constantly, changing opinions, forcing personality, laughing unnaturally, agreeing unnecessarily. And powerful people detect this immediately, because approval-seeking behavior communicates psychological dependence. It says, your perception controls my behavior. That lowers influence instantly. Now understand something important. This does not mean becoming arrogant, cold, or emotionally disconnected. It means becoming internally stable. The ability to enter a room without psychologically surrendering yourself for acceptance. Because the strongest social presence is not created through performance. It is created through self-possession. And self-possession is rare, especially in environments built on status. Red triangle pointed down. The observer advantage. Most people enter social environments focused on themselves. How do I look? What should I say? Do they like me? That internal focus blinds them, because anxiety destroys observation. But socially intelligent individuals reverse the dynamic. They focus outward. They study the room, the energy, the alliances, the insecurities, the hidden tensions. And once you begin observing instead of performing, your awareness expands dramatically. You notice who dominates conversations out of insecurity, who seeks attention constantly, who actually carries influence, who only imitates it. This is critical, because many socially powerful people are not truly influential. They are simply loud, and loudness often hides weakness. True influence rarely needs to announce itself. It is felt. That is why deep observation becomes a social weapon, not manipulation. Awareness, the ability to understand the emotional architecture of a room. Red triangle pointed down the power of strategic distance. One of Machiavelli's deepest principles was this: familiarity can reduce respect. Most people misunderstand connection. They believe constant access builds value. But psychologically, scarcity increases perceived importance. This is why powerful individuals protect their time carefully. Not because they hate people, but because unrestricted access weakens positioning. Now apply this socially. If you are always available, always explaining, always chasing interaction, your presence loses weight. But when your attention becomes selective, people begin valuing it differently. Because humans naturally assign value to what feels limited. That includes energy, attention, presence. And this does not mean pretending to be unavailable. Artificial distance feels manipulative. Real strategic distance comes from having purpose, direction, focus. A life not entirely dependent on social validation. That changes everything. Red triangle pointed down the failure case study. Now imagine someone who never learns these principles. Someone desperate to enter powerful circles. At first, they seem ambitious, driven, motivated. But beneath the surface, their behavior is controlled by insecurity. They force conversations, seek constant approval, name drop excessively, try too hard to appear important. And slowly, people begin distancing themselves. Not openly, subtly. Responses become shorter. Invitations decrease. Respect weakens. Because desperation creates discomfort. The harder they chase access, the more access disappears. And eventually, they become socially categorized, not as valuable, but as someone seeking value from others. That distinction matters. Because once people perceive you as socially dependent, your leverage collapses. This is why internal confidence matters more than external performance. Because social positioning is emotional before it is verbal. People feel insecurity long before they analyze behavior. Red triangle pointed down Law 4. Master the art of calm conversation. Most conversations are emotional competitions disguised as communication. People interrupt to feel important. Speak loudly to feel dominant. Over-explain to feel accepted. But calm communicators move differently. They are not rushing to prove intelligence. They are not desperate to win attention. They understand something powerful. The person most comfortable with silence usually controls the pace. And control of pace influences perception. That is why strategically intelligent individuals slow conversations down. Not awkwardly, deliberately. They pause before responding. Think before speaking. Avoid emotional urgency. And that calmness creates psychological contrast. Especially in emotionally chaotic environments. People remember emotional stability. Because stability feels rare. Red triangle pointed down Law 5. Become associated with value. Social climbing is not about attaching yourself to famous people. It is about becoming associated with competence, reliability, insight, character. Because reputation spreads quietly. People talk, especially influential people. And once your name becomes associated with consistency, opportunities begin moving toward you naturally. This is where many people fail. They try to appear successful instead of becoming valuable. But appearance has limits. Reality eventually exposes performance. That's why sustainable influence always comes back to substance. The ability to solve problems, create stability, bring insight, remain trustworthy. These traits create long-term positioning. And long-term positioning always outperforms short-term attention. Red triangle pointed down Law 6. Never reveal all your ambition. Ambition is powerful. But exposed ambition can become dangerous. Because people trust controlled ambition more than visible hunger. The person constantly announcing goals often appears unstable, desperate, needing recognition before achievement. Strategically intelligent individuals move differently. They build quietly, position quietly, advance quietly. Because visibility attracts resistance. And resistance increases when people feel threatened. That is why powerful individuals often appear calm while building aggressively beneath the surface. They understand timing, revelation, positioning. Not everything needs to be announced. Some progress becomes more powerful when discovered naturally. Red triangle pointed down. Law 7. Build real alliances. Most social relationships are shallow exchanges. Convenience, entertainment, temporary alignment. But powerful alliances operate differently. They are built on trust, mutual respect, competence, and consistency over time. That takes patience, because real influence is not built quickly. It compounds, interaction by interaction, moment by moment, and the strongest social connections are usually formed quietly, away from performance, away from attention, away from status games. This is another thing most people misunderstand. Powerful people are often emotionally exhausted by fake interaction. So when they encounter someone grounded, composed, self-aware, and strategically valuable, they remember it, because authenticity combined with competence is rare, very rare. Red triangle pointed down. The final understanding. Understand this clearly. Social climbing is not manipulation, at least not sustainable social climbing. It is positioning, awareness, emotional discipline, value creation, and strategic communication. Because influence is never fully controlled by words. It is controlled by perception, presence, consistency, and emotional stability.